My family used my savings to start a business, listed me as just an employee, then gave all the credit to my younger brother. My uncle said I should be grateful, so I called the bank and froze every account with my name on it. I was standing in the middle of my parents' living room in Fort Worth, staring at a stack of papers my mom had printed out, so there wouldn't be any confusion. My hands were shaking, so hard the pages kept slapping together. At the top of the first sheet in bold black letters was the company name, the business they had supposedly built with my savings. And right underneath it, like a slap to the face, was my job title. Employee, not co-owner, not partner, not investor, just employee, like I was some seasonal hire they pulled off Craigslist. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Ethan, the same kid who once crashed my car because he wanted to see what 0 to 60 felt like, was listed as co-founder and chief operations director. He was 23. He still lived in their garage apartment. He couldn't keep a job longer than 2 months. But apparently, he was the genius behind the whole operation. My dad kept saying, "It's just paperwork. Don't be dramatic," while my mom hovered behind him nodding like a bobblehead. Ethan sat on the couch scrolling through his phone, smirking every time he looked up at me. But the real punch in the gut came when I asked the simplest question possible. "Why didn't anyone tell me you were using my savings?" My mom rolled her eyes. "You weren't doing anything with that money. It was just sitting there." My dad chimed in with, "Family helps family. You should be proud we trusted your savings for the down payment." And then Ethan added, "You should say thank you. You got a job out of it." That was the moment something in me cracked. For years I had worked double shifts, bartending, delivering groceries, doing online bookkeeping, anything I could to save. I wasn't rich, I was careful. That savings was supposed to be my escape fund so I could leave Texas and finally get my own place in Denver. And now it was gone. Just gone. Invested in a business I never agreed to, credited to someone who didn't earn a damn thing. Still, I tried to stay calm. I tried to breathe. I asked, "How much of my money did you use?" They exchanged a look, a guilty one. My dad finally said, "Almost all of it." My vision blurred for a second. I had $28,000 in that account. Every bit of it earned the hard way. But it got worse. My uncle, my dad's older brother, walked into the room with a beer and said, "Kid, stop acting spoiled. You should be grateful they included you at all. Plenty of families wouldn't bother." Grateful. Grateful for being robbed. Grateful for being erased. I don't know what expression crossed my face, but something inside me turned cold. I walked out onto the porch, took out my phone, and dialed the bank. The moment the rep asked, "How can I assist you today?" I felt this steady, focused calm settle over me, like I'd just stepped into the eye of a storm I finally understood how to control. "My name is on several accounts," I said. "I need them all frozen immediately. Every last one." Behind the door, I could hear my family laughing like nothing was wrong. They had no idea what was coming, and they definitely didn't expect what the bank rep told me next. I didn't grow up thinking my family would ever do something like this to me. We weren't perfect, but I always thought we were tight. We lived in a modest neighborhood in Fort Worth, the kind where everyone leaves Christmas lights up a month too long, and people still bring casseroles when someone gets sick. My parents weren't wealthy, but they worked steady jobs. My dad managed a hardware store, my mom worked front desk at an eye clinic. We were never desperate. Money wasn't the issue. Control was. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. My parents always favored Ethan, the youngest. They acted like his mistakes were quirks and my achievements were expected. When he slacked off, they coddled him. When I worked hard, they acted like I had nothing better to do. I moved out at 20 to get some breathing room. I rented a tiny apartment and started saving aggressively. I didn't have a dream job. Honestly, I just worked whatever paid the most. Bartending at a sports bar, doing QuickBooks for small businesses, house-sitting during holiday seasons. I never complained. I just kept stacking money because I didn't want to live under my parents' thumb anymore. They knew I was saving. I didn't hide it. But I never told them exact numbers because, well, exactly this. The thing is, last year my parents started talking about a big opportunity. A franchise opening nearby. A family business we could all build together. They talked about it during holidays, at birthdays, Anytime Ethan hinted he didn't want another job that made him feel small. My parents insisted it would be perfect for him, finally something he can be passionate about. I didn't want anything to do with it. I told them repeatedly that I was moving to Denver once I had enough saved. They always waved it off, like I was joking or being dramatic. Around that same time, my dad started asking weird questions, casual questions about my bank, whether I had one big account or multiple, whether I ever thought about letting money work instead of letting it sit. I brushed it off, thinking he was trying to give me generic finance advice. I had no idea they were slowly preparing to use me. One night a few months ago, my mom called saying she needed help with a form related to some insurance paperwork. She asked for my online banking login just for verification. I refused, obviously. I told her I'd enter whatever she needed myself. She sounded annoyed, but she dropped it, or so I thought. What I didn't know then, but I would find out later, was that she wasn't asking for my login. She was checking whether I was the kind of person who could be pushed into handing things over. When I didn't, they made other plans. Meanwhile, Ethan was bragging in family group chats about how big things were coming, and how he was about to have a huge role in something. I ignored it because it felt like typical Ethan bluster. But while I was working double shifts and saving every spare dollar, my parents were already using my information. My name on a joint emergency savings account they never closed, an account I'd forgotten existed, to quietly drain money I assumed was untouched. $28,000. Everything I built. Everything I needed to finally leave. Gone without a single conversation. And now, standing in that living room, listening to them tell me I should be grateful, something inside me hardened in a way I didn't recognize. Freezing the accounts was just the beginning, because the bank rep, after confirming my identity, told me something that changed everything. "Ma'am, I need to inform you that your name is listed not just as an account holder, but as a guarantor on a business loan." My parents hadn't just stolen my savings. They had tied me to a debt I didn't even know existed, and I was done being quiet. When the bank rep said the word guarantor, my stomach dropped so hard I had to grip the porch railing. I asked her to repeat it, thinking maybe I misheard. But she said it again, slowly this time, like she knew the ground under me was about to crack open. "Yes, you are listed as the personal guarantor. If the business defaults, the debt is legally your responsibility." I felt sick, cold all over. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't even known they were applying for a loan. My parents used my name, my credit, and whatever leftover personal information they still had on file from when I lived at home. I asked the rep how much the loan was for. She paused long enough that I knew it wasn't going to be something small. $212,000. I couldn't breathe. My parents didn't just use my savings, they used me as a shield. If their shiny new family business failed, and based on everything I knew about Ethan, it absolutely would, I would be the one left holding the bag. I froze the accounts. I made the rep confirm the freeze 3 times. Then I hung up and just stood there, shaking, trying to wrap my head around what they had done. Inside, I could hear my uncle laughing at something Ethan said. A loud, sharp laugh that made me feel like the whole house was mocking me. When I walked back in, the room went quiet. My mom was the first to say anything. "What was that phone call about?" I didn't answer. I looked straight at my dad and asked, "Did you put me on a business loan?" He stiffened. My mom's eyes went wide. Ethan stopped smirking. My uncle muttered, "Here we go." My dad tried the same calm, patronizing voice he always used when he thought I was being emotional. "It was just a formality." "You have excellent credit. So you used me," I snapped. My mom said, "Baby, it's not like that. You're part of this family. We did what we had to do." "And you didn't think to tell me?" I asked. "You didn't think maybe I should sign something?" "Agree to it, literally know about it." Ethan threw his hands up like I was the unreasonable one. "Why do you have to make everything about you? This business is for all of us. You have a job." "Dad said he might even promote you." "Promote me?" "In a business I supposedly worked for but actually own the debt of." I felt this buzzing in my head, like anger made of electricity. My uncle finally stepped in, waving his beer like a sermon prop. Look, kid, your brother is the face of this thing. He's got the charisma. You're the numbers person. Everyone has a role. You should be proud to help your family get ahead. I turned to him. Did you know they used my savings? He shrugged. They told me it'd be better if you didn't know. Less drama. That was the first time I saw it clearly. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't even a bad choice. It was a plan, a deliberate decision to use me because I was the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who wouldn't explode like Ethan, the one who would swallow it. Except I wasn't swallowing anything anymore. My dad stood up, angry now. You need to calm down. You're making this harder than it has to be. I took one step toward him. Calm, too calm. I froze the accounts. The whole room shifted. My mom gasped. Ethan sat up. My dad's face drained of color. You what? He asked. I froze everything, I said. Every account with my name on it, including the business one. They erupted, my mom yelling, my uncle swearing, Ethan accusing me of ruining everything, my dad demanding I undo it immediately. But then my dad said something that made the whole thing snap into focus. Something that told me this wasn't just about money. Something that hinted at a secret they'd been keeping from me. You weren't supposed to find out this way. And from the way he said it, I knew the loan wasn't the only thing they were hiding. When my dad said, you weren't supposed to find out this way, it felt like the room tilted. There was this heavy silence, thick, charged, like everyone except me suddenly remembered a script they'd all agreed on. My mom shot my dad a look, the kind couples give when someone says the quiet part out loud. Ethan sank back into the couch, eyes darting between them like he hoped I'd miss it. But I didn't. What does that mean? I asked. My dad rubbed his forehead, the way he always did before lying. It means we wanted to wait until the business was stable before involving you in details. Try again, I said. The truth this time. My uncle muttered, Jesus, just tell her. My mom snapped, stay out of this, Richard. But the damage was done, there was something to tell. My dad exhaled sharply. Fine, you want the truth. The business isn't just ours, it's Ethan. I frowned. What does that even mean? You told me it was a family business. My mom stepped in, her tone softening like she was delivering good news. Sweetheart, the franchise paperwork is in Ethan's name. Fully, he's the legal owner. I felt everything inside me go still. No anger, no tears. Just a thick, electric numbness. And you used my savings to pay the franchise fees, I said slowly. Yes, my dad admitted. And you put a $212,000 loan under my name. It was necessary, my mom whispered. And Ethan is the only official owner, my dad nodded. It made the most sense. He's the one who needs a direction in life. You're already stable, you're independent. Independent, as if that justified screwing me over. But then Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and said the part none of them had the guts to say. You weren't ever going to stay here. You were going to run off to Denver or wherever. Why would they put it in your name when you weren't going to be part of it? They were investing in the kid who actually cares about this family. That hit me harder than anything else, because that wasn't his voice. That was my parents' voice coming out of his mouth. So let me get this straight, I said. You used my savings to start a business. You made me financially responsible if it fails. You listed me as an employee. And you put the entire company in Ethan's name. And, Ethan added, I'm the one who got approved as the face of the franchise. They needed someone younger, more relatable. My mom actually nodded, like I was supposed to understand. Like I should agree with them. My dad said, it's not personal, it's practical. You're good with money. Ethan's good with people. You'll both benefit. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound that cracked in the air. I won't benefit, I said. Because I'm not part of this business. Not legally, not financially, not in any way that protects me. My uncle took a long drink and added quietly, they've been planning this for months. They didn't tell you because they knew you'd say no. My parents didn't deny it. They just stood there, looking at me like I should get over it, like betrayal was a business strategy. And then my mom said the one sentence that made everything inside me ignite. We didn't think you'd mind. You've always been the responsible one. You can afford to help Ethan get started. There it was, the truth. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a resource, steady, reliable, useful. I was the financial backup plan. I was the safety net for their golden child. And suddenly I realized something even darker. They didn't put the loan in my name because they trusted me. They put it in my name because they expected him to fail. They were already preparing for the collapse and preparing for me to catch the fall. That was the moment something in my chest snapped loud enough that, for a second, I swore they could hear it. I stepped toward the door. My dad called after me, "Where are you going?" I turned around. "To make sure none of you ever use my name for anything again." I slammed the door behind me because they had taken my money. They had taken my credit. They had taken every ounce of trust I had left. Now it was my turn. And they didn't see the next twist coming, not even close. I drove straight back to my apartment in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my hands hurt. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't even shake. I was past all that. Anger wasn't hot anymore, it was cold, focused, almost mechanical. By the time I pulled into my parking lot, I already had a plan forming. Not revenge born from impulse. Not chaos, just strategy, step by step. Quiet, surgical. The first thing I did was spread every document I had across my kitchen table, bank statements, old tax paperwork, anything that might show how my parents still had access to my information. I found the joint, emergency, savings account they never officially closed in my name. They'd kept it open intentionally, probably to justify linking it to their new accounts, so transfers didn't look suspicious. They used my identity because it was easy, because they assumed I wouldn't fight back. That ended today. I opened my laptop and pulled up every email from the bank rep. I reread them twice. Then I replied with a simple question. What documentation was provided to list me as guarantor? While I waited for the answer, I started phase 2, locking down my identity. I froze my credit with all 3 bureaus. I changed every password I had. I set alerts for any new accounts or inquiries. Then, I filed an identity theft report, not accusing my parents by name, just stating that my personal information had been used without consent for a loan I didn't sign. A seed, a record, a paper trail. After that, I called the bank's fraud department directly. I told them what I'd discovered. I didn't exaggerate, I didn't need to. The truth was bad enough. The rep put me on hold for a long time. When she came back, she sounded careful. "Ma'am, the signature on the guarantor documents, it doesn't match the one we have on file." My heart hit my ribs. "So it was forged?" I asked. She paused. "I can't legally say that. What I can say is that it does not match the signature we use for verification. My parents hadn't just taken my money, they forged my name." The calm inside me hardened. Fraud changed everything. Still, I kept my voice steady. "What are my options?" The rep explained the process: an investigation, temporary removal of liability, a freeze on the loan until signatures could be verified. And the kicker: the business couldn't access funds or operate legally during the investigation unless the guarantor's signature was validated, which meant the business was effectively dead in the water. Not permanently, not yet, but stalled, choked, frozen. Good. After hanging up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long minute, letting the weight of everything settle. Then I moved to phase 3. I pulled up county business records and searched the franchise. My dad had admitted Ethan was the legal owner, but what he didn't mention was the part that made me go still. They listed my social security number on the EIN application. Not my name, just my SSN. That was federal fraud. I leaned back, staring at the screen, feeling something slow and deliberate take root in my chest. They had dug themselves into a hole so deep they didn't even realize the walls were caving in. But I wasn't done, not even close. Phase 4 came from a place I didn't expect. I remembered the franchise rep who'd emailed weeks ago about additional documentation. The email had gone to my spam folder. I'd barely noticed it at the time. But now, reading it again, I realized something crucial. The franchise believed I was the second owner, because my parents had used my name during the approval stage, which meant the corporate office didn't know I'd been cut out. They thought I was an equal partner, and they wouldn't like being lied to. I drafted an email, short, professional, not emotional. Hello, I am reaching out regarding the franchise application submitted under my information. I did not authorize my identity to be used, nor did I sign any ownership documents. I request immediate review of the file for fraudulent activity. I didn't hit send yet. I saved it. Because I wasn't finished gathering leverage. The last phase of planning came late that night, after hours of pacing, rereading forms, and replaying every word my parents had said. I looked at the loan documents again, and something hit me. The loan wasn't just guaranteed by me. They had tied the collateral to my credit and to my parents' house. Which meant if the loan got voided under fraud and the business collapsed, the bank wouldn't come after me. They'd go after them, their house, their assets, their livelihood, and they were the ones who had done it. I felt a strange calm wash over me when I hadn't felt in days. My parents had set a trap, but they were the ones standing in it. All I had to do was let the door close. And then, right when I thought I had uncovered everything, right when I thought I knew the full scope of the betrayal, I found something else. Something they never wanted me to see. A document in the loan packet marked additional signer addendum. And the signature next to my forged one wasn't my dad's, it wasn't my mom's, it was Ethan. Second twist incoming. I stared at Ethan's signature on that addendum for a long time. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it, that messy loops and jagged slants weren't enough to prove anything. But I knew his handwriting. I'd seen it on birthday cards, on crumpled speeding tickets, on job applications he made me fix for him. It was his. And the longer I looked at it, the more certain I became that he hadn't signed it for my parents. He had signed it for himself. I dug deeper, pulling up every scanned document in the loan packet, comparing signatures, dates, initials. And then it clicked. He hadn't just signed the addendum. He had signed the primary borrower line on the loan application. Not the cosigner line, not the witness line, the borrower line. My parents didn't tell me because they thought I'd be upset. They didn't tell me because they thought I'd interfere. But Ethan didn't tell me for a much uglier reason. He had taken the loan out under my name and his, making me the guarantor and himself the beneficiary. If the business succeeded, he got the profit. If it failed, I got the debt. He had engineered it so every outcome worked for him. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen, letting the full weight of it sink in. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't my parents fumbling through paperwork. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Ethan had done this intentionally. He had planned for me to carry the risk while he took the credit, and then I uncovered the part that made my hands go numb. The dates. The signature dates didn't match the documented meeting dates. The timestamps didn't line up. The notary who verified my signature wasn't even employed at the bank at the time the form was supposedly signed. They hadn't forged my signature once. They had forged it twice. And Ethan had been the one to submit the packet. My parents didn't just lie to me. They let Ethan orchestrate everything. They let their least responsible child commit fraud using my identity, because it made their dream easier. I scrolled through the loan documents again, this time looking for anything that hinted at why my parents had allowed Ethan to do this. Why they would put me in danger, financially or otherwise, to prop him up. Then I found something even worse. A hidden PDF inside the bank portal titled, Projected Ownership Transfer, 18 Months. I opened it. There, in neat little bullet points, was the plan. Transfer full business ownership from Ethan to Dad once initial growth phase is complete. Transition loan liability to me entirely, due to stable credit history. Remove me from payroll after first operational year once Ethan is fully established. Secure additional funding using my credit score as backup if needed. My throat tightened. They never planned for me to be part of the business long-term. They planned to cut me out once my credit had been squeezed dry. But what stopped me cold was the final line, something my dad must have typed himself. She won't say no if she feels she is helping Ethan succeed. Not we hope. Not maybe. She won't say no, as if my loyalty was a guarantee, as if my entire personality was a tool they could wield, as if they owned me. But it wasn't the manipulation that broke me. It was the realization that they'd counted on my silence the same way someone counts on gravity. Ethan had even added his own note at the bottom of the document. If she moves to Denver, we can sell her portion as unused share and eliminate her from the agreement without penalty. I clicked on the next attachment: bank recordings, phone calls, internal logs. In one recording, dated 2 months ago, my mom told a loan officer, "She won't fight us. Trust me, she never fights us." I sat there listening to her voice crackle through my laptop speakers, sounding so certain. So confident in my obedience, so sure I would bend. But then came the recording that changed everything, the one that shifted this from betrayal to something colder, almost predatory. It was Ethan's voice. Smug, steady, calculated. "She's too focused on leaving town. As long as we make her feel included, she won't look closely at anything." Another pause. Then he said the sentence that made my skin crawl, "And if things go south, she's the perfect fall guy." I stopped the recording. I felt hollow, sick, cold, because this wasn't a clueless family stumbling into bad decisions. This was a setup. A plan, a betrayal years in the making. And suddenly, all those moments from the past 6 months, my parents brushing off my move, my dad probing about my bank accounts, my mom asking for my login just to check a form, all snapped together like puzzle pieces that had been waiting for me to see the picture. They didn't just use me. They built a trap around me to protect Ethan, to secure him a future, to sacrifice me quietly. But they forgot one thing. When you build a trap around someone, you better hope they don't figure it out before the door closes. Because once they do, they can turn the whole thing inside out. And I was already pulling the first thread. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with the loan packet open, replaying Ethan's voice over and over until the words lost shape. Fall guy. Hearing him say it out loud should have hurt, but what I felt instead was this cold clarity settling in my chest. I kept looking at that transfer plan, the one that laid out exactly how they were going to squeeze me dry and shove me aside. Something bothered me about it, not just the cruelty but the timing. 18 months. Why 18? Why not a year? Why not 2? I opened the PDF again, scrolling through the timeline, and that's when I saw it. One line buried halfway down the page, written in Ethan's handwriting like it was nothing. Ownership transfer to Dad required before renewal due to pending issue with license eligibility. License eligibility. I dug deeper, pulling up franchise rules, state regulations, business requirements. And then the truth hit me so fast I had to sit back and steady myself. Ethan wasn't eligible to own a franchise long-term, but not because of his work history, not because of his age, not because of finances. He wasn't eligible because 6 months ago, Ethan was arrested. Not publicly, not charged, not booked into the county jail. But he was detained, questioned, and then quietly released after my parents spent thousands securing a lawyer. I wouldn't have known about any of this if I hadn't dug through the bank's internal correspondence. In one email, the franchise's legal team flagged something in Ethan's background check. Incident flagged. Assault with intent under review. My heart slammed into my ribs so hard it made my chest ache. I remembered that night. I was working a double shift at the bar, and my mom called me sounding panicked. She asked if I knew where Ethan was. I said no. She hung up fast. I didn't hear anything else about it. Because they didn't want me to. I opened another document from the bank's verification folder, an incident report the franchise required. And there it was, plain as day. Ethan had gotten into a fight outside a bar in Arlington. Drunk. Aggressive, witnesses said he lost control. He broke another guy's nose and dislocated his jaw. The only reason he wasn't formally charged was because the victim didn't want to go through a lawsuit and my parents paid him off. But the franchise didn't care about charges. They cared about eligibility, and Ethan wasn't eligible. My parents knew this. Ethan knew this. My uncle knew this. Everyone knew except me. Because the whole business, the entire plan, depended on someone else stepping in as the clean owner on paper so they could push Ethan forward as the face of the franchise. Someone with good credit, no record, no debt, no baggage. Someone responsible, someone trustworthy, someone who wouldn't ask questions, someone like me. But that wasn't the part that chilled me. The part that chilled me was the note my dad wrote to the franchise rep, an email I found buried in a chain of forwarded messages. Ethan made a mistake when he was younger. He needs direction. My daughter has stability but no real obligations. This arrangement benefits everyone. No real obligations. That was how he saw me, not a person with dreams. Not an adult with plans, just available, a backup, a placeholder, a vessel to carry risk. But the darkest part didn't come from my dad, or my mom, or even the franchise. It came from Ethan himself. He emailed the franchise rep directly, trying to convince them the family structure would work in his favor. I opened the attachment. Inside, he'd written, "She owes us. My parents spent a lot more raising her than she realizes. This is just her chance to give back." My jaw clenched so hard it ached. He actually believed it. He believed I owed him. He believed using my savings, my credit, my future was some kind of repayment. I kept reading. "She won't cause problems. She wants to leave anyway. Once she moves, we can phase her out without friction." He had planned not only to exploit me, he planned to erase me afterwards. I clicked the final attachment in the email. A drafted statement Ethan wrote, presumably for when the ownership transfer took place. Although she was supportive in the early phase, she was not actively involved and therefore agreed to step back. It was mutually decided that the business would be best managed by the family members committed to staying in Texas. The words "mutually decided" made something in my chest twist in a way I can't describe. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just manipulation. It was intentional erasure, a calculated move to use me and then cut me out quietly, rewriting the story so I was never important, never vital, never anything more than a footnote. And the worst part? My parents were willing to let him do it, because they cared more about Ethan's success than my entire life. Not 1 ounce of remorse, not one moment of hesitation, not one thought for the damage they were doing. They weren't trying to build a future. They were trying to rebuild Ethan at my expense. I closed the laptop slowly. Now I knew exactly who I was dealing with, and I knew exactly why they thought they could get away with it. Because in their eyes, Ethan mattered more, and I was expendable. They planned this with the confidence of people who believed I would always stay silent, but silence wasn't an option anymore. Not after this. Not after seeing the truth laid out so plainly. They wanted a fall guy. They were about to find out that they picked the wrong person. The next morning, I woke up with one goal: end this, not with yelling, not with threats. Not with some messy blow-up they could spin as me being dramatic. No, I was going to end it quietly, legally, and completely, so thoroughly that not one of them could twist the story into anything other than what it was. I started by calling the bank's fraud department again. I gave them the name of the notary listed on the forged documents. The rep put me on a brief hold, then came back and confirmed what I already suspected. The notary's signature was fake too. That was enough for the bank to officially flag the loan as fraudulent. Once that happened, protocol kicked in fast. The business account was locked. All loan funds were frozen indefinitely. The investigation was escalated to the bank's legal division. The guarantor, me, was temporarily removed from liability pending signature verification. The rep told me they'd be contacting the primary borrower, Ethan, within 48 hours. Good, let him find out the same way I had, with everything collapsing at once. Next, I finally sent the email to the franchise's corporate office, attaching every file, signature discrepancy, addendum, and timestamp. I didn't exaggerate anything. I didn't accuse. I just provided facts. Corporate responded within 2 hours. Their reply was short, clipped, and ice cold. "This constitutes serious breach of agreement. We are initiating immediate review and suspension of the franchise application." Translation. The business was dead. No launch, no operations, no franchise license. No co-founder Ethan photo shoots my mom bragged about to her friends. I wasn't finished. I filed a formal identity theft report with the state. I submitted the forged documents. I referenced the bank's pending investigation. I did everything by the book. Then I sent a courtesy notification to my parents and Ethan. A fraud investigation is underway regarding the loan and franchise application tied to my identity. I advise all communication to go through legal channels. Not angry, not emotional, just factual. Within 5 minutes, my phone exploded with calls, then texts. Mom, please call us back. Dad, this is a misunderstanding. Ethan, you're insane, fix this. Uncle Richard, you're blowing up your family over nothing. Mom again. We can talk this out. Dad again. Unfreeze the account. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I sent one last email to the bank's legal department, explicitly requesting that any updates regarding the investigation be provided to me in writing only. Paper trail, always. By noon, corporate had already contacted my parents. I didn't hear the call, but I didn't need to. My dad left me a voicemail that didn't sound like him at all. His voice was shaking. They're saying we committed fraud. You need to call them and clear this up. Do you understand what you've done? Yeah, I understood perfectly. By evening, my uncle showed up at my apartment banging on the door. I didn't open it. I didn't even move. Eventually, he left a note taped to the door. You messed up Ethan's future. He might get charged. Good, because Ethan wasn't clueless. He wasn't a kid who made a one-time mistake. He forged my signature. He lied on federal documents. He used my social security number intentionally. He wasn't the golden child. He was a grown man who thought the world owed him a life he hadn't earned. And my parents. They enabled him because it was easier than admitting who he really was. A user, a manipulator, a selfish, calculating parasite. They built their entire plan around the idea that I wouldn't fight back. They counted on my silence. They counted on my loyalty. They counted on the version of me who used to bend every time they pushed. But that version of me was gone, and the fallout came fast. 2 weeks later, the bank's investigation concluded. I was fully cleared. Liability removed. Loan voided due to forged signatures. All responsibility shifted to the listed borrower, Ethan. The collateral, my parents' house, the one they'd tied to the loan behind my back, the one they thought they were protecting Ethan with. Now it was tied to his fraud investigation. Corporate terminated the franchise application entirely and banned all three of them, my parents, Ethan, and any family affiliates, from applying again. Their family business was dead before it ever opened. The house they tried to gamble with was put at risk because of Ethan's forged documents. Their credit tanked. Their savings disappeared into legal fees. Everything they tried to build on my back collapsed on theirs instead. And me, I moved to Denver, found a small apartment with big windows, got a job with steady hours, opened a new bank account they'll never know about, finally breathed. Sometimes I think about calling them just to hear what excuse they've crafted for themselves. But then I remember the line my dad wrote. She won't say no. They were wrong. I said no in every way that mattered. I said no with the bank. I said no with the franchise. I said no with every piece of evidence I turned over. I said no by walking away and refusing to carry their consequences. They wanted a fall guy. They got a reckoning instead. And the best part, I didn't ruin their lives. They ruined their own. I just stopped letting them use mine.